Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to Movie Night here on Random Trek. I am your fearless Captain Optimus Prime, and it's time for the Autobots to roll out. As we are taking a look today at the 1986 animated sleeper, Transformers the Movie. Joined as always by my first officer. He is the Ultra Magnus to my Optimus Prime. It's Commander Brennan, the Mystical Mar. Brennan, how we doing?
I'm the Unicron to you.
I don't know if you would be Unicron, man.
No.
Oh, and today we are joined by a very special guest. I know him as the Night Fury because this man is the biggest How to Train Your Dragon fan I have ever known. But he also likes Star Trek, and I convinced him to come watch Transformers in exchange that 1 year from now, we will review another Transformers movie. But I won't tell you which one. But we will review another one a year from now. It's the Night Fury himself, Nico Rigoli. How you doing, Nico?
I just love that your intro was like, good morning, good afternoon, it's movie night. So, like, you covered all the bases. But still, in terms of a grammatical sentence, it makes zero sense. Yes, I am here. I'll spoil the movie that I want to do a year from now, and that's Transformers 1, which I watched on a plane, and I loved it very much. Unlike this movie was kind of rough for me, but I figured it would be fun to do like a compare and contrast experiment 1 year from now. Yeah. Hi. I'm here. The things I will do for a friend. And Ingle, you are lucky you are my friend, and I'm willing to do these things for you.
And bribery. Bribery helps.
Yes, that too.
I am so good a friend to Nico that we once were doing a Lego building podcast, and I door dashed him, and he lives across the country from me, 4,000 miles away. I door dashed him Carl's Jr. because I cared that much.
Actually, it was a Wendy's Baconator.
Oh, it was Wendy's. I thought it was Carl's Jr. Okay, fine.
I mean, either way.
I don't think we have a Carl's Jr. or a Hardee's. I don't think we have anything from that chain for at least like an hour away.
Tells you how long ago this was. It was been a while.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Anyway, so today we are going to take a look at Transformers the movie. Now, normally I let Commander Brennan take the con for movie night, but I actually really know a lot about this film, and I'm a big fan of the Transformers franchise in general. Yes, spoiler alert, I like the Michael Bay films, so sue me. But I had seen this many times, but Nico and Brennan had not. So, Nico, being our guest, I want you to give us your first initial thoughts, and just in general, maybe, how do you feel about the Transformers franchise as a whole going into this?
I mean, as I said before, like, there is a Transformers movie that I like. We're going to be covering it in a year from now. And I like the concept of, like, okay, a planet of robots that can double as vehicles, and they have personalities and lives. So it's like, it's not truly artificial intelligence, it's just robot happen to be their species. But this movie, and we were talking about this earlier in the week because you said that, like, there aren't a lot of great 80s movies that are animated. And I wish you had given me that warning beforehand. But as someone with ADHD, this movie felt like a struggle to get through at times. It felt like a lot was happening, and there was too much to pay attention to and too much to want to pay attention to. Like, there was nothing that really suckered me in, with the exception of the soundtrack, which I know you're going to geek out about a lot as we go further on. But for me, this was just kind of a movie that exists. It wasn't for me, and there were times where I was struggling to pay attention.
Okay. Brennan, what did you think about it, and kind of going in, and maybe the Transformers franchise as a whole?
I really have not seen a lot of Transformers. I grew up, of course, in the 90s watching Beast Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew about this film, but I'd never seen it. I knew about a certain song on the soundtrack that we'll get to. And I knew, we're going spoilers, that Optimus Prime and Megatron die in this. And I know that that caused no small controversy in the 80s. And as far as seeing this film now for the first time, I knew that Orson Welles was Unicron and this was his last film. By the way, he recorded his lines 3 days before I died, and he died 2 days after I was born. Sorry, let me rephrase that. That came out wrong. He recorded his lines 3 days before I was born, and he died 2 days after I was born. I said died. No, I didn't. I am not dead yet. No. But I knew that. And that's about as far as I knew about this film.
Yeah, for me, I didn't come into this until later, but I grew up with Transformers heavily in my life. I had the toys. And I really came into the show in the early 90s because they put out Gen 1, and we call this G1. They put out Gen 1 Transformers again after the initial run had run dry in the 80s. And Hasbro really wanted to change what they were doing. I'll get to Hasbro in a second. But in the 90s, they rehashed it. They re-released the episodes out. And newer audiences were watching them, including myself. And I had a lot of the toys that were coming in. And I have an uncle that's 10 years older than me. So I had a lot of the Transformers, the die-cast Optimus Prime that I really wish I had today because I would be a millionaire. Among so many other toys. And, of course, Beast Wars. So I grew up loving Transformers so much. When I got to go back and watch this and found out Optimus Prime is killed, what? So surprised and shocked. But for me, and I think that's why I love the Michael Bay ones too, because it's just pure nostalgia for me. I loved playing with the toys. And that's what this movie is all about. And I think that's part of the problem, Nico, that you have, is that this isn't cohesively an overall great cinematic experience because it's a one giant 90-minute commercial. And that's how it was designed.
That I can understand. By the way, I just remembered I actually do own 2 Transformers action figures, but they're not ones you would think. They are actually...
Are they McDonald's ones?
No, it's the Obi-Wan Kenobi Red Jedi Starfighter one.
Yeah.
And the orange Sase Tin Jedi Starfighter one from like
they they had a crossover where they took different characters from different franchises. You could find an Ecto 1, you could find Vader's TIE Fighter, a couple different ones. It's really cool.
Mace Windu and Anakin had their Starfighters as well. So like pretty sure Grievous's bike was one of them.
Let me give you the brief history of this film. So in 1984 this series came out. It was a combination of here in America of Transformers and GoBots, 2 separate series that existed in Japan. They weren't called that. I don't know the Japanese name, so sue me. Anyway, and there was a big hit in the United States, but Hasbro's main point was not a TV show. Their main point was to use the TV show to sell toys. Now, we were already seeing this in the early to mid-90s with Masters of the Universe and Thundercats, and so many of the shows that were released were all about releasing toys. That was the purpose at the time. But this became a big hit. Well, after 2 years, in actually just before 1986, Hasbro went, you know what? We've been selling the same toys over and over and over again. We need new waves, and we need people to buy the new toys and not the old toys. How could we do this? Well, let's kill them off in the series. No, we can't do that in a series. No, we don't kill, because in the series they had standing rules that no Transformers were destroyed. You could get hurt, shot, but you could be repaired. We need to kill people off. How do we do that? Let's do a movie. And so they started to form to make a movie. They contracted with Toei Animation, of all places, and animated this on a fairly decent animated budget at the time, $6 million. Not a massive amount today, but back then, that did a lot to create great animation. We'll talk about the animation in a little bit. But they made the decision to bring in all these new characters and to kill off some, in fact, some very beloved characters. Optimus and Megatron were killed off. So let's get into the plot of this film. It's really kind of basic, actually. It is, once again, hero's journey. We talk about hero's journey a lot on this podcast. But the idea is that the Decepticons have conquered the home planet of Cybertron, and they want to destroy all of the Autobots. The Autobots have a secret plan, but they need resources, so they're going to go back to Earth. Megatron finds out about it, hijacks it, and they go to a battle on Earth. They end up losing. They lose the fight and escape, but Megatron is brutally injured along with Optimus Prime in the process. While they're in space, Starscream dumps Megatron, and Megatron encounters who is the true villain of our franchise, apparently, and that is the all-powerful Unicron, which is a giant Transformer-like planet that, like Galactus in the Marvel movies, devours planets for his energy. And meanwhile, Optimus dies and gives the Matrix of Leadership, the symbol of Autobot power, over to Ultra Magnus. And now they must protect the Matrix of Leadership from the Decepticons and a reformatted Megatron, who is now Galvatron. And that is where our connection in this comes from, because Galvatron is voiced by none other than the great Leonard Nimoy. All right. Nico, we'll start out with you. What do you think of this plot?
I just want to go back real quick to what you were saying earlier. I think this is where I actually maybe struggle with this movie, is the fact that it's a movie. And like, for some reason, I just think that I've had enough time over the years to analyze that I am maybe better suited for television than I am for movies in terms of my consumption habits. And for because one of I liked Beyblade Metal Fusion, the TV show, where it's just like one big advertisement for those combat spinny tops. For some reason, in television form, that's easy for me to digest. For some reason, in this movie form, where there's like a lot of context that I don't have, and a lot of new characters are being thrown my way, and they're all kind of getting the Suicide Squad treatment of like, some of them are important and some of them might not be, but a lot of them are dying either way. That's probably where I was struggling with this. But in terms of like the if you could re-ask me your original question, because I went off on a tangent there. But I want to.
What do you think of the plot of this film?
It's an interesting plot. I just don't know if the execution was right, or at least right for me. But I do. They did get a good voice cast, I will say that. And but it just feels like, as someone with no context as to the TV show, as someone who's like, this is my introduction to like Transformers of this era, in terms of like the 80s and what they were putting on for you to watch. This was a lot, and it was just kind of hard for me to take in. But I did see the Marvel parallels, not just in the form of Unicron being a Galactus-like planet, but also, the more I looked at Ultra Magnus, the more I was having flashbacks to those John Walker memes of like, look at this Temu Captain America. That's essentially like that. I could not shake off this feeling of like, I'm sorry, Ultra Magnus, but you're not Optimus Prime, even though you look like him. You kind of look like a cheap knockoff, and I feel like whoever was in charge at Hasbro to design you this way kind of left you hanging to dry. Because, like, you can tell when Optimus Prime dies, he pulls out the Matrix of Leadership, and he's dropping it as he's passing away. And Hot Rod catches it, and you just see that big shining light of "I am the chosen one" popping up when it enters his hands, and then that light goes away when he hands it to Ultra Magnus. You're like, okay, we know what's happening later on at the end of this. We know who's going to save the day. Yes, that's essentially the Excalibur moment right there. I don't know. I'm kind of like torn in two different directions as to like Megatron's transformation into Galvatron. I'm like, what was the, and it's more so just like, what was the purpose of changing his name along with this upgrade?
It still comes to the same reason that everything was done in this film. They had to wipe away as much of the first two seasons as they could so you could sell new toys. They didn't want Megatron overshadowing the new Hot Rod or RC or any of those. Their logic was, we need to get rid of them entirely, and that's why Megatron was changed into Galvatron. Now it's not Megatron, it's Galvatron. It's a whole new toy.
Right as I said it, I kind of realized, like, oh yeah, action figure sales. That's why. Well, with that logic, why kill Optimus Prime, and why not just give him a new transformation and a new body as well?
So
it's something to think about.
No, it is funny that you say that because, and we'll talk about it at the end, there was some backlash to this movie. Big backlash that plays in. But Brennan, what do you think of the plot?
I did have a bit of a hard time paying attention. I mean, to the movie. It feels... I mean, there's a lot going on, but I didn't find myself very invested in the story.
Right.
Because it's not really much of a... I mean, yes, there is a narrative, but it's not really a narrative film. This is a 80s animated TV spin-off movie. And it doesn't really have the... It's not like watching a film that is inherently a theatrical film.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as being like just an extension of the show, I know that people who had emotional connection to the show have an emotional connection to this movie. But because I didn't have a connection to the show, I don't find myself invested in the film. And as far as changing things for the new toys, I mean, it's one of those where it's like, we understand the real world reasons. In the story, you understand the reasons, but I just didn't find myself invested emotionally in the film.
Yeah, and I'll admit that it is very disjointed at times, and it took me a while to get to where I can appreciate it now. I do feel that this would have served better as like a 3-part episode kind of epic. And if you did 20, 30 minutes at a time, and I think if you break it up actually, by act, it does break up itself pretty well at that point for that.
Yeah.
Then you would have been able to do that. But that might have been more expensive for them. If you think about overall production and the time to put that in there. A movie, in this case, was the quickest and easiest route. But making a movie wasn't their primary goal. Again, it's a 90-minute commercial. That's what it's designed to do.
I can see your logic with that. Again, though, it feels like 20 to 30 minutes of this movie could be cut out. And I say could be because their inclusion in the movie, at the very least, advances the character arcs of both Hot Rod and Cup, who are kind of like... I mean, Hot Rod is one of the core characters of this story, and Cup is kind of like the Scooby-Doo to his Shaggy in terms of advancing his narrative as well. But it's like they get into some weird adventures in the middle of this movie that kind of like really drift away from what's going on with Unicron and Galvatron and everything, and so it feels like
I mean, planet and the shark robots, and
it's a weird detour, and me coming from a Star Wars background, like detours are things that I'm used to. Weird detours that kind of like feel like they shouldn't be part of the story, but you learn to appreciate them over time. And so like maybe it's the fact that I'm not used to this that it's kind of jarring in a sense.
Well, let's get into talking a little bit about its cast, because I do think, besides the soundtrack, which we'll get into after that, I think that's one of its strengths is the variety of actors that they got in here and the characters they created. So, of course, Peter Cullen is the voice of Optimus Prime, and for the most part has been the voice of Optimus Prime for a very long time. I think in the animated films now they have someone else who is the voice, but original series, references, toys, video games, even into the Michael Bay films, Optimus Prime is voiced by Peter Cullen. Pretty much always has been, and God willing, always will be. I love it. And his opposite, for at least the first few minutes, first 20 minutes or so, is Frank Welker as Megatron. Now, Frank Welker, also a legend in voice acting, doesn't do just Megatron in this. He does Soundwave, Frenzy, Rumble, Wheelie, Scrap Heap, and the Junkians. Many of the Junkians, too. So Frank Welker, man about town as he does, they are in it. But very quickly, as we said, those characters are wiped away to lead us to the main, I'm going to say the main characters we're going to focus on. And let's start, you know what, let's start with our fearless captain, Leonard Nimoy as Galvatron. By the way, this will not be Leonard Nimoy's only foray into Transformers voice acting, as he will come back for the Michael Bay films. But, Brennan, I'm going to start with you. How do we feel about Leonard Nimoy as the villain in this? Spock's our hero. Spock's a good guy. Leonard Nimoy shouldn't be a villain.
I mean,
he is. How do we feel about him?
He does well enough. I mean, he still sounds like Leonard Nimoy.
Well, he's got an iconic voice.
That's inescapable, because his voice is so iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Galvatron is... I think the relationship that Galvatron has with Unicron is rather interesting, just in the sense of Galvatron is the antagonist, but the real villain is Unicron.
Mm-hmm.
And Unicron's control over Galvatron is all about power and authority and things like that, and abusive in a way. One might even say the word. And I think Leonard Nimoy manages to be villainous, but I think there is enough of a trace of sympathy to a degree. Obviously not, because of where he decides to go, but it's Leonard Nimoy. I can't really complain about his voice acting. Because he has such an amazing voice. And I could listen to them talk all day on whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's necessarily super impressive, but it's not unimpressive. It kind of is what it is for the story.
Nico, your thoughts on Nimoy as Galvatron?
Okay, so first I just want to make a quick note about Leonard Nimoy's voice, and go with me on this because it's a weird analogy. But I've always thought that Leonard Nimoy has, like, his voice sounds like he has the early stages of whatever is wrong with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s voice, but his voice itself is so attractive that whatever that raspiness is just makes him sound more distinguished. And so, like, it allows him to exist with, as Brendan's good friend Ken Knapsack would like to say, it allows him to exist within the intersection of knowledge and wisdom. And so and by existing in that intersection, he can kind of Leonard Nimoy has a voice that works as both the hero and the villain, or at least the antagonist role very well. So I just I could listen to Leonard Nimoy's voice all day. It just sounds so appealing to me.
I think it adds a gravitas that you can't get from Frank. And I love Frank Welker. Frank Welker as Megatron is iconic. I think of that all the time. But I think there's a bigger gravitas with Nimoy.
I would definitely agree, although I will say the amount of voices that Frank Welker did, he better have gotten paid big. But nevertheless, the Leonard Nimoy specifically as Galvatron in this. You asking me to watch this movie when you have during a time when, like, the world we live in may or may not be on fire. So it's like a bunch of very, very controlling evil people are, like, trying to establish dominance over one another as well as the overall population. And so that relationship between Galvatron and Unicron of, like, Unicron's in control, but Galvatron keeps trying and failing to get one up on him so that he can establish his dominance, and he just keeps getting whipped right back into submission, no matter how hard he tries. And that's essentially what fascists will do, is, like, they will try to scratch each other's back to get to a common goal until that common goal is no longer good enough for one of the parties involved, and then they'll try to usurp. Again, to bring another Star Wars analogy into this, it's the master and the apprentice, and the apprentice is always trying to kill the master and become the master themselves. And if that doesn't work out, the apprentice gets slaughtered and the master finds a new apprentice. So it's the worst form of BDSM possible, because it's very abusive and nobody seems to win.
This is the first time, ladies and gentlemen, we have mentioned that on this podcast.
Speaking of master and apprentice, if Galvatron is to be the apprentice, then we have to talk about the master. And Unicron definitely, he's not in it a massive amount, but his presence is known. And even if he's just phoning it in, you can't deny that Orson Welles in his final days still commands presence when he is on screen.
Absolutely.
It's been 13 years since I've watched Citizen Kane, for the one and only time I've watched Citizen Kane. But I still remember how much he captivated the screen when he was exuding that character. And so to learn that he was alive to actually be Unicron in this movie, which, by the way, it's kind of sad that this was apparently his last movie, given everything I've said about it so far. But he definitely does have that presence.
He does.
Even and it's appropriate that, like, he is such a larger than life personality. So they had him play a planet. They had him play a planet to exude that larger than life personality that he carries.
Well, Nico, I think how you feel about this film and Hard to Keep Up is exactly how Orson Welles felt. Because recording this was a pain for Orson Welles. So, this was the last thing he did. He would read his lines so slowly that the audio had to be shortened and sped up about 8%. And his voice was so weak that everything you're hearing is run repeatedly through synthesizers just to salvage it. Like, it was almost unusable. You know, and yet, this is what we get. Wells claimed that he always had an admiration for animated films, and that's why he agreed to take it. Right before his death, he told his biographer, Barbara Learning, "You know what I did this morning? I played the voice of a toy. I play a planet. I menace somebody called something or other. Then I'm destroyed. My plan to destroy whoever it is thwarted, and I tear myself apart on screen." Nico, I don't think he had any idea what was going on in this film.
How old was he when he passed?
Oh,
He was in his 80s.
That would be very easy to tell. He was 70.
Oh, he was only 70. Okay.
He was 70, yeah.
Uh-oh.
But I like him. You know, and as a kid, I had no idea who Orson Welles was. But this is menacing. This is good. And I wanted that toy.
Uh-oh.
Never got to have Unicron. Always wanted one. But it's awesome. But to our villains, we got to talk about our three. I'm going to say three primary.
Well, you didn't
heroes,
ask me about Orson Welles.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brennan. I apologize because you were talking with him.
I have a great admiration for Orson Welles. Chimes at Midnight, if anyone has seen that. His command of Shakespeare and stuff like that was amazing. But it certainly did a lot of narration during his life. The Shogun miniseries from 1980 had him doing some VO.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly with this film, if this is quote-unquote the weak voice of Orson Welles, it's still extremely impressive. And he does have such a level of command that is extraordinary, even for a movie like this.
Right.
Well, you need someone of that kind of immense presence to play this godlike being. And I think, even if he didn't understand what he was doing, he nails it.
And we have a large cast, and we're not going to touch on everybody, but I do want to mention three others that are really important. We have Lionel Stander as Cup, and apparently we've lost Nico, but he hopefully should be coming back in a second. Lionel Stander as Cup is kind of the grizzled old man, who I actually do remember from Heart to Heart. Remember Heart to Heart. How do we feel about him as Cup, Brandon?
I think he brings an element of that, old, experienced warrior kind of guy. And I think he actually does pretty well in this. I like that character a lot. And I like that, he's been around, he's seen a lot of things. He's an encouraging mentor, which I like. And he has an element to his voice that just makes you think of an old soldier who's been around.
And he has. I mean, his earliest credits are back in the mid-1930s.
Yeah, so I think he's actually quite good in this.
Although he, too, probably had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, yes. And of course, leadership, we talked a little bit about. Nico, you're back. What do you feel about Cup, the Lionel Stander's voicing of Cup?
Quick pause. I can see I'm back. The little thing that says trying to reconnect make sure you have stable internet connection is still kind of going up at the top of the screen. But the fact that you can see me, like, is everything fine?
A little blocky, but we're hearing you okay. It's the audio that matters. Yeah, you'll be good. Okay.
I don't know what's been going on. My VPN and my Wi-Fi have kind of been, like, going in and out all day, but it's, like, been, like, quick little bursts, so I don't know. But, okay.
Lionel Stander as Cup.
I like that they portrayed him as the old vet, with a lot of war stories to tell to sort of get the young recruits, get the young troops feeling good about themselves as they head into what could possibly be their death day. And like they've seen a lot of death so far in that span of the movie, so they kind of need whatever morale boosts they can get. And I also like that, like, the dynamic between him and Hot Rod, it kind of starts out as like a little, we're butting heads. We're butting heads because we come from like the old and the new, the young and the old. We're two different generations kind of clashing with one another, and then through the magic of the plot, they kind of are like forced to get to know each other better, get to work with each other more. Like Hot Rod even has to save Cup from a squid robot for some reason, and literally fix him up because like he's basically torn to pieces, literally speaking. And then like Cup not only fixes him, like he makes him better and like helps repair like with the robot equivalent of a torn rotator cuff, essentially. Like he helps him fix that, and they bond while in prison, and like they just become a good duo in that sense. So I like it that he starts out as sort of the mentor to Hot Rod, and then it becomes like, okay, now the young dog is teaching the old dog some new tricks too.
Yeah. We go on to the controversial, but not the actor, just the character. Ultra Magnus, played by the legendary Robert Stack, who has done many things, but I will always remember him for Unsolved Mysteries.
And Airplane.
And Airplane, yes. I do forget about Airplane more, but I grew up with Unsolved Mysteries, so that voice is what I remember.
Too. Oh, my.
Nico, let's start with you. I know you felt Ultra Magnus was, I believe you said, Temu Optimus Prime, but how do we feel about Robert Stack in the role of Ultra Magnus?
See, I'm showing my lack of actor knowledge here. All that studying for the Schmodown over the course of those years did absolutely nothing for me, and I've retained zero of the information since then. But Robert Stack, like, I'm trying to honestly remember what his voice was for this character, and I'm just kind of like blanking on it right now. And that's kind
Robert Stack. I don't know it.
and that's unfortunately kind of the problem with the character of Ultra Magnus is like, you look like Optimus Prime, but you're not Optimus Prime. People know who Optimus Prime is, and they know what he sounds like, and they know that voice carries a presence. And no offense to Robert Stack, this is more so a slight on the character he's playing here. But like Ultra Magnus was just not the guy, and the plot of the movie itself made it a point that like he's not the guy. He doesn't even believe that he's the guy. He's kind of just given that spot because he looks like Optimus Prime, and because Optimus Prime believes in him. But like if he doesn't believe in himself, then he doesn't really fit the mold, and that's why Hot Rod takes over and is the guy who he's the King Arthur in this situation. And unfortunately, Ultra Magnus, not very Ultra, not very Magnus in this sense. He's kind of just, again, the Temu version of Optimus Prime.
So you're not wrong, and I will say this historically, when Ultra Magnus was created for the Gen 1, he was a Diaclone toy, and he was specifically made to be similar to Optimus Prime. So you're absolutely right. 100%. I don't know. I like him because it would be very easy, and in future iterations, Ultra Magnus is very heroic and very strong and almost brother-like to Optimus Prime. But I like in this that he's subdued. This is a guy who, in the entire series, did not want to be the leader of the Autobots, but was willing to take a leadership role when necessary. It was a lot like Tommy. You know, he was made, Tommy from the Power Rangers. He was made to be cool. He was made to be the next thing. It just didn't go that one step further with it. But I like there is a subtlety to Robert Stack's performance that he is holding, and he's kind of reticent. And it fits to Ultra Magnus's character. He wasn't ready. And he knew that, and he said that. But then we have the true hero of this film.
Can I just say one more thing real quick?
Hot Rod. Go ahead.
I just want to say, I like spin-off characters very much. I love War Machine to Iron Man. I love both Bucky and Sam to Steve as Captain America. I wish, honestly, I can't stand Bruce Wayne, but I love his entire family. I feel like the Batman family is a lot more interesting than Batman himself, and so it's like so I don't doubt that Ultra Magnus in future projects got a lot of good things to do. This is just not one of those good things for him.
Yeah.
But we go to what is arguably the hero, the true protagonist of this story. Hot Rod, and eventually Rodimus Prime, voiced, interestingly, by Judd Nelson. Breakfast Club man, Judd Nelson. Brennan, how do we feel about the Judd, the member of the Brat Pack, being the hero of our film?
I actually like Hot Rod a lot in this. I think he's really a lot of fun, and definitely much better character, I think, than Ultra Magnus. And so I'm glad that it ended up being Hot Rod that became the next leader, because if it had been Ultra Magnus, that would have been kind of boring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Hot Rod has really neat design. I like his design.
I like both of them.
Because he doesn't look just like one of the other characters.
Mm-hmm. And to be clear, he has two. When he takes on the matrix of leadership in the end, it changes him into a prime.
Yes.
And as Nico will say and understand, in Transformers 1, we see what happens when that energy happens to someone. Although they go into more detail in Transformer 1. But basically, he goes from a regular, I would say a medium-sized Transformer. He's not as small as Bumblebee. But he grows into a prime.
Yeah, and I enjoy the character. I really do, and I think he did a good job.
Nico?
Remind me, because again, it's been a while since I've gone through IMDb. Judd Nelson, in terms of the Breakfast Club, he was the wrestler kid, right?
He was Bender.
Okay, so that is the kid who was on the wrestling team?
No, the kid who was on the wrestling team was Emilio Estevez. Your Bender, I believe, was kind of the tough one, the one facing the principal all the time, and I think he ended up with Ali Sheedy.
So the one who threw his fist in the air at the end of the movie, then?
Yeah.
That's
okay. I was mixing up the two for some reason. Yeah. Okay, I was mixing up the two. That's an interesting thing to think about. That, but then again, you picked the cool rebel guy to play the cool rebel guy, so it kind of works out very nicely in that sense. And I don't think I picked up that Hot Rod had turned into a prime, because when I watched him open the Matrix, I kind of saw the energy of the Matrix kind of I don't think I saw it go inside of him to make him transform into a prime. I saw it more so go into the inside of Unicron to blow up Unicron. So that part kind of escaped me, but it does kind of explain oh, this is why his voice changed a little bit at the end in terms of its delivery. But yeah, it fits. It fits. Judd Nelson, based on what I've seen him in and other things, even though I didn't recognize him until you just told me who he was specifically, he does kind of fit this character very well. In that both of them are rebellious young guns trying to figure out their place in the overall dichotomy here, and they think they know everything, but they don't. And in a sense, like, Hot Rod is part of the reason why Optimus Prime dies. He tries to do too much. He tries too hard to be the hero in a moment where he doesn't have enough knowledge to be the hero in that moment. Because like Megatron he's on his knees begging for mercy, kind of like trying to get a gun to shoot at Optimus Prime. Hot Rod sees this, tries to jump Megatron. It backfires. Megatron basically uses Hot Rod as a human shield, or a living shield, I guess is a better terminology. And Megatron takes advantage of this, shoots Optimus Prime multiple times, and Optimus uses whatever energy he has left to throw Megatron off a building, but he kind of perishes in the process. And so that's a big turning point for Hot Rod of like, okay, I need to do better. And through his relationship with Cup that grows as this movie kind of forces them to work together and forces Hot Rod to grow up, he grows into that King Arthur moment, that Rodimus Prime moment that we see at the end where he saves everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he plays out to be the great hero, the King Arthur, and to have his King Arthur moment really well, and I enjoy him. I didn't at first. When I was younger, when I first saw it, I don't know. I was kind of like, eh. But now I've gotten to him a little more, and I don't think he's as reckless. I mean, his initial thing that cost Prime, yeah, but he's young. He's, brash. Bumblebee fit that bill during the series, so I was like, okay, he's the new Bumblebee. I get it. Oh, he's more than Bumblebee. Okay, I buy it. And we don't have time to go into the entire cast because, my goodness, there are so many here. But I do want to give a point out to a few who play important parts in this and are big names. So Susan Blue in the voiceover world, she plays RC. We have the great Chris Collins as Starscream. Casey Kasem as Cliff Jumper. The great Eric Idle. I don't know why he is in it, but I'm glad he is. He is the Wreck Gar. He is in it. To a Star Wars connection, Clive Revel is Kickback, the Insecticon Grasshopper. He is in this as well. Corey Burton is in this. And it goes on and on and on. The great Don Messick. Scooby-Doo is a voice in here as Gears. Yes. The misfit Autobot that we see on the Quintesson planet. It goes on and on and on. Everybody was in here. And I really like that. I love the diversity of voices. And still to this day, when cons happen and more than one voice, they always come together. Hi, how you doing? It's great. It became like a little family, even though, for years this movie was forgotten about. Let's move on here to the part of it that I really, really, really enjoy, and that's the soundtrack. I absolutely adore this soundtrack as a child of the 80s. It rocks. It has no cohesion to it, and yet I love it so much. The main Transformers theme is a song on here redone in a really masterful form, and I love it. It is actually on my playlist today. But by far, the single that mattered in here was Stan Bush's The Touch. Brennan, you want to talk about The Touch?
It didn't really stand out to me because there's another song that does. A certain gentleman named Weird Al Yankovic
that would be Dare to Be Stupid
would do a song on this soundtrack.
Yep.
And I've listened to that song many times.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta say, is there a more 80s soundtrack than this movie?
Absolutely not. This is just so
This is like
gripping.
the epitome of 80s music.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, maybe.
Okay, true. That's true.
Yeah.
But this has the great synth score of the 80s feel.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Bryan Adams sounding music. I don't know why, but even though it's not him, but it's like Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, it's that kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like the soundtrack. I like how very... Once you hear it, you are immediately back in the 80s.
The music really carries the energy of this film, and it doesn't slow a lot until you get to the death of Optimus Prime. And after that, it kind of really just bumps the entire way. It was a lot of fun for me. I enjoy this soundtrack, and honestly, if somebody asked me, hey, what does music from the 1980s sound like? This is probably what I would pull up. I really enjoyed it.
It'd be interesting to think of what my nieces and nephews would think of this.
That's...
This is what our music sounded like in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. It really was... it's different than what we had in the original... the Gen 1 series. Gen 1 series was very... It still had that synthesizer sound, but it was a few years earlier, and it's a TV show. They don't have a full soundtrack to go with it. So the scores often were very repetitive over and over and over and over again. But like the dialogue that they chose to use in this film, they wanted to bump it up. And I will say this, in an equal way that I feel the energy is bumped up here, the dialogue was done the same way. When you hear an Autobot curse, and yes, we hear an Autobot curse, real cursing multiple times, not heavy, not the F-bomb, but enough of some of the others that I went, whoa, I was not expecting this.
Yeah, the stuff you could say in kids' movies in the 80s.
Well, we'll get into the
say today.
We'll get into the reaction to this film at the end by audiences at the time. But yeah, I wasn't expecting it. And the music, same thing, I wasn't expecting this. And yet, the two soundtracks that are my absolute favorite of all time from animated movies of that era, Transformers the movie and G.I. Joe the movie, both designed to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Love it. And I think they both were from Hasbro anyway, so makes sense. But let's, what good is an animated film if we don't talk about the animation to this? They had a bigger budget here. And so I think it actually shows in the making of this film that the lines on this are so much crisper for it. And of course, you've got 3 times the length of a standard episode, maybe a little bit more, because this is 90 minutes versus a 22 minute episode. But anyway, 30 minutes. Brennan, we'll start with you. What did you think of the actual animation in this, done by primarily Toei Animation in Japan?
Yeah, it's got that Dragon Ball Z look. That same style of animation.
I think it's cleaner. I genuinely do. I think it's even cleaner.
I think it's cleaner. I like the detail. And I also like that it's rough. And I mean that in a good way. I mean that it has a level of detail, but also a level of... How would I put it? An almost... like messiness, but a good kind of messy. Mm-hmm. The kind that makes it have a lot of texture to it. And, there's a lot going on the screen, certainly. But there is something about the look of these kind of films. And particularly in Japanese animation, the level of detail is extraordinary. And I just like that it has such a unique look that you really don't get in animated films today.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and also that 2D hand-drawn animation is actually really interesting to look at. I mean, maybe it's a overdone just in terms of what's going on the screen. But it is a joy to look at it and go, man, those were the days. So that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Nico, what did you think of the animation?
First, good catch on the Dragon Ball Z comparisons because of Toei animation. I hadn't really picked up on that until just now, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I do kind of see it now. I do kind of see the resemblance there. There is a lot to look at, and that in some cases that was where the movie kind of lost me. Of like, there's too much. There's too much. It's like sensory overload to some degree. But I won't deny that the things you are overloading my senses with here are well drawn, are well textured, and it's very colorful. It's very colorful, and that is very 80s. Whereas, like, as we've gone forward into the future with various decades, it's like, I like, if you think about it, like, McDonald's, Nickelodeon Studios used to be very colorful in the way that, like, the outside of the buildings would look, very kid friendly. And then as time has gone on, as the decades have passed by, you can see that, like, they become more corporate in the way they look in their outer structure. And so, like, again, this is where it is beneficial that it is a product of its time here, this movie, in that it just emphasizes color everywhere. And something I want to think about now, because you said that, like, this is one big 90-minute commercial for the new line of toys, and it makes me wonder how many of these Transformers, they already had toys done in advance, and they just showed them to the animators, and the animators just put them on a drawing, versus the other way around. How many of these characters that we saw in this movie actually didn't have a toy, but were designed to be background noise, and then maybe got a toy after this movie came out? Because I still think about that Australian dude with the twirly mustache, that one Transformer. Like, I can't help but wonder, like, were you designed as a toy and then just put into the movie, or did someone just decide to have some fun and put you in here to see if you would get a toy afterwards? So that's something to think about.
Rekgar is the most Eric Idle character in an animated film I can think of. In terms of not just being completely over the top, but yeah, the design of him is rather out there. With the mustache. But yeah, I wonder about that too, about how much of this was designed to be toys versus the other way around. I don't know.
You know, the problem we have with this production is that it comes down to two different sides to it, and you're absolutely right. They had the toys. They were the front thought and not the story. It was never about the story. And I will tell you, the animated series was never about the story. It wasn't. They were all a commercial to sell toys. Now, this eventually in the United States would come to become a big problem. So much so that there was legislation eventually passed to where television shows could no longer do that. They had to have an educational component, which is where we get G.I. Joe's famous "knowing is half the battle." That's where that came from. However, I remember in the rehash of the second run of Generation 1, when they also started to include Transformers doing that "knowing is half the battle" kind of thing too, to where there was this kind of thing. So a lot of this stuff was afterthought. It was all about selling toys.
And those of you kids who may be too young, the G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle, is one of the earliest videos on the internet, redubbed into hilarious and often uncouth jokes, but long before even YouTube existed, people were doing this. It was hilarious.
So the creation of this movie was kind of grueling on the animators. The studios, or more aptly, Hasbro, wanted this thing pushed out ASAP. So the budget was $6 million, which was 6 times greater than 90 minutes of the TV series. Shin's team, we'll talk about Shin in a second. Shin's team of almost 100 people, personally, would take 3 months to make one episode of the series. It took a lot of time to get things done. So the extra budget just didn't help. It just didn't help. And even Toei's personal vice president, Kozo Morishita, spent a year in the United States during production supervising art direction for this, saying that Transformers should be given 7 layers of shading and shadow for the dynamic and appearance to work here. As a matter of fact, it was Shin himself who conceived of the idea of Optimus Prime's body turning from color to gray as he was dying. Nice touch. But the demands were to still get a film out pretty quick. And it was, unfortunately, pretty hard. They didn't have time to advertise for it. So when this was released in August of 1986, it was released to what was essentially a limited release. At the time, it wasn't. Now it would be considered a limited release. 990 screens. That's nothing. It made $1,778,559. Today, only a little over $5 million on its opening weekend. It opened up in 14th place behind a film that had been in theaters for 5 weeks. Its final gross was $5.8 million. Today, about $17.1 million. And it was the 99th highest grossing film of 1986. Hasbro, as a result, lost $10 million between that film and another Hasbro film meant to sell toys, My Little Pony, the movie. So they lost big money on both. And it just did not stand a chance in the theaters. It was lost in a huge lineup for the summer that included Short Circuit, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Labyrinth, Big Trouble in Little China, Karate Kid 2, Aliens, Howard the Duck, that's a whole other issue, Stand By Me, Flight of the Navigator, and The Fly, and it lost to all of them.
Yeah.
It was
Quick
crazy.
Question for you.
Yeah.
Question for you. When you say My Little Pony, are you referring to the movie that came out like just a few years ago with Liev Schreiber in it, or was there a My Little Pony movie in the 80s that I'm unfamiliar
There
with?
was a 1986 My Little Pony movie done same time to serve the same purpose because, again, Hasbro owns My Little Pony. Gotta sell toys. And so this one starred Danny DeVito, Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, Rhea Perlman, Tony Randall. And it was based on the original line of My Little Ponies in 1986. The movie that you're thinking of wasn't released till 2017, and the Friendship is Magic line later that Hasbro did, but they took more time. That series, by the way, is actually a good series. It's actually really good.
I've heard Billy Bob Thornton, of all people, is a giant fan of it.
He's a brony. He's a brony. Yep.
And weirdly enough, this conversation has made me think about something that's very near and dear to my heart. I don't know if anyone remembers Lego Bionicle. Like that. That is the like Bionicle literally saved Lego from bankruptcy back in like the start of the 2000s.
Yeah, they created a whole storyline to go with those toys.
Yes, and weirdly enough, like it based on this conversation we're having, I'm now seeing the connections because, for one, anytime a character would die, they'd kind of gray out too. So that's something. But like the author of all the comics and the novels and whatnot, Greg Farshti, from what I understand, he was basically given like, here are the action figures we are going to put out for this year. You make a story out of it, and here are the requirements you have to follow for this story. For each year, we are making this specific toy line. So, like in 2007, they had like an underwater theme. They made him basis stories around that and whatnot. So it's interesting to see like how this specific thing that was, we're making this to sell toys with the Transformers movie, how that failed. Oh no!
And we lost Nico
up
again.
You're losing. Oh no!
We lost
God
him again.
damn it.
He'll come back.
Oh wait, am I back?
There he is. Now I hear you. Okay. Your audio is good.
The All-Stark disappeared from the end, and then
Okay, I'm back. As I was saying, it was interesting to see, like, here's an example of something that was made to sell toys in the form of this Transformers movie that did not work, but it inspired this thing that I love, that is, like, stories and comics to sell this specific toy line that did work. And maybe the fact that they didn't go the movie route until, like, maybe 2004, was it? 2003, I think, was their first movie. And granted, those movies were kind of like trash, but they were only like an hour long each, so it didn't really matter, and they were all straight to DVD. But it's like, it's kind of interesting to see, like, here's something that didn't work, here's something that followed that model and did work.
Mm-hmm. It's also worth noting this is an early Marvel production. This was also put on by Marvel Productions and Sunbow at the time. Marvel was known for doing certain properties in animation early on that were not Marvel, and would actually carry over, as many Transformers comic books would eventually be published by Marvel.
The things Marvel has liked to license over the years, like, they just had the Alien and Predator licenses for their comics like a handful of years ago. And like, obviously they got Star Wars now, and they maybe had some Star Wars stuff back in the past. Like, very interesting comic book licenses, and how all these things can help with the distribution of other things.
Well, the reception to this film, unfortunately, in 1986 wasn't great. Not only did not enough people go see it, but those who did, there were some serious problems. At the time, reviews of it were atrocious. People hated it. They were not prepared for the violent levels that they were seeing in this film. People who brought their children were crying when Optimus Prime died. They would remove their children from the audiences. This did not get looked at well. I would say that this film was probably a little more ahead of its time than it should have been for their attempts. They wanted to do something a little more mature, and I respect it. But definitely it did not go well for them. As a matter of fact, this is what famously one of Hasbro's turnarounds is. They got a huge letter writing campaign saying, "How dare you kill Optimus Prime? We love Optimus Prime." Which eventually came to them resurrecting Optimus Prime in the series, eventually bringing him back as the leader that we know and love.
It's the exact opposite of the Jason Todd situation of, like, we fucking hate this guy, please kill him off.
Oh, yeah, that one was quite a thing.
Now, today, however, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 62%, which isn't great, but it's not awful either.
That's an F, though, in terms of, like, high school grading. And you are a teacher, so you know this.
That is not an F. That is a D-, sir. That is passing in the state of California.
that is not how it should work.
No, it isn't, but it is how it works. It's something that has become a little more beloved over time. The animation style is really great. The soundtrack is rocking. I keep saying that. In fact, actually, what it reminds me of a little bit, which surprisingly I saw when I was earlier, was Heavy Metal. Another animated film of the time that is very adult, very grown up, but the animation styles are amazing in that movie. And the music rocks. It is rock of the 80s. And this feels like that to a softer degree for kids. It just, I think at the time, didn't kick in. But when this thing was re-released eventually on DVD and Blu-ray, it blew up. People loved it. They wanted it. And it ended up going, as a pretty big take that year when it came out. And now it's beloved. People appreciate that now. So I'm curious, from your opinion, and we'll close out on this. How come, how is it that a 90-minute commercial that destroyed beloved characters, including one of the most beloved heroes of all time, how does this eventually find a place in the world?
If I may, because, like, Brennan, you are a regular caller to the Force Center podcast. I'm a regular listener of that podcast, and, like, there are a lot of things within Star Wars that I've had to wrestle with over the years of, like, how do I feel about this? Because it may have come to me at a time when I was not ready to appreciate it. And then over a few years' time, eventually something clicks within me of, like, maybe I understand the themes a little bit more at this during this time in my life, or maybe just, like, I needed a different delivery via, like, a Lego game of some kind to help me appreciate it a little bit more. And weirdly enough, I still don't know if this movie, in terms of the way it was executed, works for me. But this conversation that we have had over the past 70-ish minutes has helped me gain a little bit more of an appreciation for what's going on within the movie. The stuff that I maybe couldn't process at first because it was like there was either too much going on and just none of it was, like, grasping me. But it's like the conversation is helping me. It's like therapy in a sense. And, as we've seen with a lot of movies that weren't popular when they came out. The Princess Bride, for example, one of the greatest movies of all time.
One of my favorites of all time.
And kind of, like, it shit the bed when it first came out in theaters. And then over time it just developed a cult following. And people started to realize, like, this is good. What were we complaining about? And so, like, I think that's maybe where this movie finds its audience is just, like, sometimes you said it yourself, Ingle. This movie was ahead of its time, and so maybe eventually just the audience caught up when it was time for this to actually come out.
I think there's more belovedness to Transformers. There's Transformers everywhere now. Everything.
I also think that the 80s was full of movies that were not well received in their time. Movies that have gone on to be classics like Blade Runner, or cult classics like The Never-Ending Story. And I just don't think people understood at the time the value of these things. But I think in the case of Transformers the movie, the fact that this show and this franchise meant a lot to kids of the 80s, and then when they became adults, they were able to take that love and say, okay, maybe the movie didn't do well back then, but we love it now and it matters to us now. Not because it's cheap nostalgia, but because it really emotionally matters to the people that grew up with it. And I think that we have seen over the course of the last however many years that the things that matter to people when they're young really matter. This is why, in a way, with the Star Wars prequel trilogy, we are seeing a revival in it because all the kids who grew up on it have taken ownership of it the way that a lot of us older folks are not. And so I think the same thing is occurring here with Transformers is it mattered to them when they were young, and maybe the older people didn't quite get it, but now those young people have grown up and they've carried the love of this with them to now. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah, it's fun, and for me, it's nostalgic. I enjoy this. I love playing with Transformers. I still collect not Transformers, but Transformers things. I have Funko Pops of Megatron and Soundwave, and I have Lego Optimus Prime that I have to fix because my cat destroyed him. Apparently my cat is a Decepticon. I'm convinced of it.
Oh, yeah, cats are.
Absolutely. Convinced of it. But yes, I, love this film. I know it's not a perfect film. I know that it is slow at parts. Totally get that. But I think when you get to begin to appreciate it and look beyond it less as a commercial, and when you can look at it beyond the slowness even for a 90-minute film, there's a lot here. It's really enjoyable. It's pretty to look at. This is Orson Welles' final film. I mean, if anything, for that. And
to me, he's the selling point of this film, personally.
He really is. Well, for me as a Trek fan, then I've got Leonard Nimoy, who I enjoy as Galvatron. I really do. And it's such a big change because Megatron, for years in the show, only turned into a Walther PPK gun. That is what he turned into. Never liked it, never appreciated it, because when I was a kid, toy guns like that weren't allowed anymore. So, in the toys, Megatron was changed into a tank. That's what I grew up with. Megatron as a tank. Seeing Galvatron as the cannon, well, that makes more sense. I liked it. And there were more toys. I wish I had some of them now that I don't have anymore. And I still, to this day, want a Unicron toy. Plain and simple.
Yes, me too.
Alrighty. Well, I'd like to thank Nico for coming on to our show and talking Transformers. In a year, we'll talk about the Transformer film that you did like.
Transformers 1. And since my Wi-Fi cut out, I just want to piggyback on the last thing I heard Brennan say, which is what he said about the younger generation reclaiming the prequels. The next generation will do the same for the sequels, and greater appreciation will be gained for those as well with time.
Yes.
Again, time heals all wounds, even with movies that maybe didn't hit the first go-around. Is there a plug portion? Or
I was just about to get there.
Yes,
okay.
What do you have to plug?
Nothing for me personally. However, I just want to say the world is currently on fire, and if you want to do something about it, please call your local representatives and call representatives that aren't local to you as well. Just let them know that, hey, don't go to war. Please do things with our money that will actually benefit us rather than just cause more death and destruction. Because, again, if this show that we're on right now is to celebrate the legacy of Star Trek, which is space communism in its best form possible, it would be very nice if we exuded some of those beliefs and philosophies in real life as well and tried to just make the world a more unified and healthy place to exist where money is not a corrupting influence and we all just get along. And sometimes that requires taking action, and that means calling the people in charge to let them know, hey, do your job better, and also if they're not doing their job, vote them out of office and vote people in. If elections are still a thing in a couple months, hopefully they still will be.
Yeah.
I hope so too. We got to have you back on when inevitably we look at some great favorites like How to Train Your Dragon or the Lego Movie, both of which I know you love.
Yes.
And for your birthday this year, I have to send you the Toothless Lego that I know is coming this year.
Okay, because I actually already have the Toothless Lego set. So
was it already out? I thought it was...
Okay. If there's a new one coming out, I don't know of it yet, but I do have one in my closet that has not yet been built. So
Nico and I have spent a lot of time building Legos, and we still do. And it is my goal, and we'll talk about it someday, to build the Enterprise and to just kind of post it on our channel, just of the building of the Enterprise, because it is so amazing. It is a beautiful set, and maybe I'll buy one for Nico. I've done that before. I bought him Rivendell, and we built Rivendell together. Nico built half of Rivendell.
If you need to get me a set for my birthday, I'll take that one.
We'll get that.
We have that one. We have the Rivendell one. My mom has that one.
I sold mine.
I still have mine. It's up on the top of the shelf.
Is it half built?
No, it's fully built. Currently sitting on my desk is actually the one of the modulars. It's the museum set from the modulars, and I also have something from the Rebuild the Galaxy line from Star Wars on another table that I need to finish.
One of the, you know what? Actually, that might be a good podcast for Brennan's Star Wars podcast. We talk a little bit about Lego's Star Wars as we've grown up building and playing with them and their effect on the franchise. But that's another thing. We'll talk another time. But next week we go back to the rigors of normal, and we go to Deep Space Nine. Good old DS9. I love DS9. Let's see here. What episode are we going to get? So here we go. Okay. Wheel of Morality. Turn. Tell us the season that we should burn. All right. Looks like we are getting Deep Space Nine Season 3, Episode 14, Heart of Stone. So the crew of DS9 is looking for a Maquis raider on an unstable moon, and Kira gets trapped in this crystal formation that is going to engulf her if Odo cannot set her free. You know what it reminds me of? What King Boomy does in Avatar: The Last Airbender to Katara and her brother. If anybody gets that reference. The crystals. Anyway. That'll be interesting. And this is where I believe Nog tries to get the letter of recommendation from Cisco. Cool. All right. Brennan. Oh, wait. And of course, movie of next month. We've talked about this briefly. We are going to have last month's guests back on as we are going to take a look at our first mini-series. We take a look at 1997, I believe it was 97, Moby Dick, starring one Patrick Stewart as Captain Ahab, featuring a guest appearance from one Gregory Peck.
Yes, who's not only a great actor, but also the grandfather of Ethan Peck.
And the original Ahab. So I'm really excited. I haven't watched this in years, so I can't wait. Near 20 years. Can't wait to watch it again. Brennan, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at Renward@BlueSky.social. Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube at Page Turners They Were Not.
And you can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Ingle1984. But as always, we end every episode. Kapla! And live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.